Okay, so we just have to finish off the first paragraph on Reish Chavav. We didn't get the last two lines. So we brought two Pirushim, two translations in HaBaim, Yashresh, Yaakov. The first, the Tzemach Tzedek, in the Maamar of the Tzemach Tzedek, he brought two explanations in HaBaim, Yashresh, Yaakov. The first explanation was HaBaim, the Yidden who will come back to Eretz Yisrael when Mashiach comes, Yashresh, Yaakov, then Yidden will get their Hashrasha, and the Targum says Yisilidun, Aleida is an Inyan of Gilui, and the Tzemach Tzedek explained that when Mashiach comes, the Sheresh HaNeshama that's higher than Ishtalshus will be Begilui. And the second taich that Tzemach Tzedek said is that HaBaim, that Yashresh Yaakov refers to mitzvahs, that the Sheresh of Yidden, where do Yidden take root in doing physical mitzvahs, just like a tree, the root is in the physical earth, in the lowest in Daimim. We'll see our source, where the source where we come from will be revealed, will be visible.
And the second one, we'll see what?
The second one, it doesn't say it's talking about Mashiach, is that Yashresh Yaakov is describing what always happens, that Yidden are like a tree. We have to take root. What is our roots? Where could we have roots? In something like that's compared to the earth, which is in physical mitzvahs, in the act of mitzvahs, in action.
So we'll see that, or we already know?
We're not talking about seeing that. We're talking about, according to the second interpretation, the pasuk is describing the performance of mitzvahs by Yidden. And it describes that as Yashresh Yaakov, whenever a Jew does a mitzvah, he's like a tree getting roots. And he brought the Mishnah, that the Mishnah equates a mice of Merubim, mice mitzvahs with a tree that has very strong roots and it's very solid.
Maybe just like you don't see the roots, they're hidden. And that's the idea. So we don't necessarily see now doing that.
We don't see the accomplishment, the outcome. Okay, but he didn't, in the second shot, he didn't discuss the fact that it's Baham, but it's correct, it's true. And then the Rebbe said the two Pirushim in HaBaim, Yashresh Yaakov, are connected because mitzvahs bring about the Gili Sheresh HaNeshama. Mitzvahs bring down the Sheresh HaNeshama. Then the Rebbe brought from the Alter Rebbe in Teira'er that there's another tie in the second way that Yashresh Yaakov is describing Kiyam HaMitzvahs. So the Tzemach Tzedek brought that the comparison between mitzvahs and roots is because Yaakov, Yidden, get their roots by doing mitzvahs. We're rooted in mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is like the earth. In Teira'er he says that mitzvahs, which is a godly air, it's a godly light, get their roots in Yidden. Yidden are compared to the earth. It says, Kitiyu atem li eretz chayfetz, and the mitzvahs get rooted in Yidden. And the Alter Rebbe, that's where we were up to Alter Rebbe in his, where he says this pshat in Yashresh Yaakov, a little bit different than the one that Tzemach Tzedek brings. He also explains the word HaBaim. And he says HaBaim means the ones who come to Galus Mitzrayim. Because in order to have Yashresh Yaakov, to have this accomplishment of the mitzvahs getting roots in Yidden, it needs the hachana, the preparation of going into Galus. Galus prepared Yidden to be Makabel the Torah. The Alter Rebbe said further that HaBaim also refers to this Galus that prepares for the Kabbalah Satira of L'Asad Lavi. And that's where we're up to. The Rebbe said, why did the Alter Rebbe have to add this? Because in the Pasuk, the simple meaning of the Pasuk, HaBaim, Yashresh, Yaakov, goes together. That in HaBaim, in this HaBaim, during the HaBaim, these roots take place. If according to the first pshat in Teira'er, that HaBaim refers to Galus Mitzrayim, the Hashrasha of Teiro Mitzvahs didn't take place during Galus Mitzrayim. Galus Mitzrayim enabled it, it prepared for it, but it was a later stage. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe in Teira'er adds that HaBaim also refers to the current Galus. That with regards to the current Galus, the Yashresh Yaakov, the roots that happen through doing mitzvahs, is in the HaBaim, it's within the HaBaim, during the HaBaim, because the Maila of mitzvahs is specifically connected to HaBaim, to the mitzvahs that are done b'zman HaGalus. Let's... So, mitzvahs are the ratzin of the Eibishter. which is an expression of the big Gili Elikus. Just like a tree, a seed has a force to blossom, to grow, to produce great things. But in order for that to happen, it has to be planted into a physical earth. So too, this Ratzon Elyon, in order for it to bring down Gili Elikus in the world, it has to be planted in Yidden. That means the mitzvah has to come down into a gashmistic act that the Yid does in the performance of this mitzvah. And then it's like the pasuk that the Rebbe says, Yotzitz ufarach Yisrael, then Yidden bring to the growth and the blossoming of all the giluyim that result from the kiyama mitzvah, just like the planting the tree causes the growth and the blossoming. So now we're just the last 3 lines of the first paragraph in Reish Chavav, where the Rebbe sums up, concludes this explanation that with what the Alter Rebbe says, that HaBaim also refers to the current Galus. So we see then the connection between HaBaim, Yashresh, Yaakov. The Lefi Pirush Zeh, according to this explanation, that HaBaim refers not only to Galus Mitzrayim, but also to the later Galus. HaBaim v'Yashresh Yaakov him inyan echad. The HaBaim and Yashresh Yaakov are one inyan. They're together. The Hashrasha of mitzvahs, the roots of mitzvahs are during the HaBaim. Shehashrasha the mitzvahs b'Yisrael. The Hashrasha of mitzvahs, that power of mitzvahs that they take root in Yidden. Shal Yidei zeh tiyeh hatzmicha la'ased lavei, that this brings the growth when Mashiach comes. He be'ikir be'hamitzvahs she'Yisrael mekaymin bizman ha'galus. This is specifically during the HaBaim. That's why the pasuk says HaBaim. When is there this advantage of mitzvahs, this kayach of mitzvahs, that mitzvahs bring about roots, taking roots, that causes a growth? This is specifically in HaBaim, in the coming to Galus, in the mitzvahs that we do during the time of Galus. And the Rebbe concludes, Kamesha Kasav B'Tanya, that this emphasis on the advantage of mitzvahs specifically during Galus, which explains the HaBaim, this says in Tanya in the beginning of Perek Lamed Zayin, Shakol hagiluyim de la'asid lavei tluyim b'maseinu v'avedaseinu bizman meshach hagalus. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that the giluyim that will happen when Mashiach comes are resulting from and dependent on our mitzvahs that we do bizman hagalus. Now, l'cheira, we would say, if the giluyim of la'asid lavei are totally in mitzvahs, the mitzvahs that we do bring about the giluyim la'asid lavei, so it should be dependent on any mitzvahs. Why dafka bizman hagalus? From when the world was created until la'asid lavei, there was a whole history of many different eras of Torah mitzvahs. There was twice when we had a Beis Hamikdash, which wasn't the time of Galus. Everything collectively, seemingly, leads to the giluyim of when Mashiach comes. Yet the Alter Rebbe seems to say in Tanya that which mitzvahs specifically have this maila, this advantage that they bring about, they're the result with the giluyim of la'asid lavei, are the mitzvahs shebizman hagalus. And the Maamar, this is one of the main points we're going to deal with. Why is that? Why does the Alter Rebbe say that? But for now, so that explains why in this other Maamar in Teira Eir, the Alter Rebbe connects Yashresh Yaakov with HaBaim, with those who come in Galus, referring to this Galus, because the Hashrasha, the advantage, the result, the accomplishment of mitzvahs is mainly true about the mitzvahs that are during the HaBaim, the mitzvahs that are done b'zman hagalus, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. So now, we said, one of the questions in the beginning of the Maamar, that Tzemach Tzedek brings 2 explanations in HaBaim, Yashresh, Yaakov. But in the second explanation of the Tzemach Tzedek, where the Tzemach Tzedek translates Yashresh, Yaakov as referring to doing mitzvahs, he doesn't explain the word HaBaim. Right? And the Maamar asked, why doesn't he explain the word HaBaim? In the first explanation, the Targum Yenis Ben Uziel, that the pasuk is describing the Gilui Sheresh HaNeshama. So HaBaim means the times of Mashiach. But Yashresh Yaakov, according when the Tzemach Tzedek explains in the second meaning, he explains the words Yashresh Yaakov, he doesn't explain HaBaim. The Alter Rebbe said also Yashresh Yaakov refers to mitzvahs. It was just a different explanation and what exactly is the comparison of mitzvahs with Hashrasha. But in the Alter Rebbe explaining that the pasuk is referring to doing mitzvahs, he also explains the word HaBaim, like we just explained, that we're referring specifically to mitzvahs during the time of Galus, which is the meaning of HaBaim. So why doesn't the Tzemach Tzedek also say HaBaim, what HaBaim means? Right? Tzemach Tzedek was after the Alter Rebbe. Tzemach Tzedek could have brought down, also said the same explanation of the Alter Rebbe, that if we're saying Yashresh Yaakov refers to mitzvahs, then HaBaim means the Galus. According to the Targum Yenis Ben Uziel, HaBaim means the time of the Gula. But when we're saying it means mitzvahs, we also have a way of understanding HaBaim, because the mile of mitzvahs, the advantage of mitzvahs is mainly during HaBaim. Why didn't the Tzemach Tzedek say that? Right, clear? It says the Maamar v'yesh leimar dezeh shebidrush hanal da'at Tzemach Tzedek einoi maitik pirush zeh behaboim Yashresh Yaakov. Tzemach Tzedek explains only the Yashresh Yaakov, but he doesn't explain the word haboim. To say, like the Alter Rebbe says, shezeh koi al kiyum ha-mitzvah shebizman hagolos, he doesn't interpret it to mean that we're referring specifically to the mitzvahs during haboim, during the time of Golos. Who? Because according to this Maamar of the Tzemach Tzedek, mitzvahs aren't connected dafka with the Zman HaGolos. The Giluyim of La'asad Lavai, the Giluyim of Mashiach are dependent on mitzvahs. According to this Maamar of the Tzemach Tzedek, Zeh sha'giluyim de la'asad lavei tluyim b'maseinu v'avedaseinu, that the Giluyim, when Mashiach comes, are dependent on our Avedas Hashem, on our mitzvahs, who b'maseinu v'avedaseinu shebechol hazmanim. It refers to the mitzvahs in all times, like we should say misvara. Heim bizman habayis veheim bizman hagolos. It refers to the mitzvahs during the zman hagolos and also to the mitzvahs bizman habayis. Shebechol echad mehem yesh ma'ila kidlakaman, that there's an advantage in each of them, and both of them together bring about the Giluyim of Mashiach. And therefore, according to this Maamar of the Tzemach Tzedek, he can't translate habaim as the time of Galus, because the mile of mitzvahs, which is what the pasuk is speaking about, is not limited to the time of Galus, so that can't be the meaning of habaim. V'yashresh Yaakov, the words Yashresh Yaakov, the roots of Yaakov, lahabir shebidrush zeh, according to the way it's explained in this Maamar of the Tzemach Tzedek, koi al kiyum ha-mitzvah shebechol hazmanim, is referring to mitzvahs in all times, not just b'zman hagalus, that all of them bring about the Giluyim of Las and Love.
So the Rabbi is just bringing up that it's dafka begolos.
The Alter Rebbe in Tereir said it's dafka begolos. The Rebbe is going to explain now why we're saying two different things, how are both correct, how it's correct on the one hand what it says in Tanya, and what it says in Tereir based on that the Giluyim of Mashiach results specifically from the mitzvah shebizman hagalus, and it's also true what it comes out according to the Maamar of the Tzemach Tzedek, that the Giluyim of La'asad Lavai are dependent on mitzvahs in general, not limited to the mitzvahs that are bizman hagalus. So there's two inyanim the Rebbe is going to explain, two types of Giluyim of La'asad Lavai, two types of milas that are there in mitzvahs, and with that we'll explain that both are correct. V'inyan hu de b'hamayla shebekiyim ha-mitzvahs al limud ha-teira. This Maamar, all of the Maamarim are based on the fact that we know there's a certain advantage in mitzvahs over Teira. Like he brought down in the beginning of the Maamar, that Teira reaches Chachma, reaches Reishis Hashtalshus. Chachma draws down from the Giluyim of Hashtalshus. And mitzvahs bring down the Eir Shalamayla Mishtalshus. And he brought from the Mishnah. So why Taka? What's the Maila? What's the advantage of mitzvahs over Teira? One advantage is Shaham Shachash Aidei Kiyam HaMitzvahs Hinailis Yeser Me'am Shachash Aidei Limud HaTeira. One advantage is this advantage that we said before, that mitzvahs reach higher, they draw down a higher air. They bring down the air Shalamayla Mishtalshlos. And like he's going to say later in this Maamar, because mitzvahs have an advantage that's not there in Teira, which is the inyan of Bittul. Teira is connected with the person's mitzias. When you're learning Teira, you're understanding the person's using his faculties, his abilities, his chushim. Mitzvahs is bittul. Mitzvahs is a whole act of doing a mitzvah as an expression of someone's bittul to the Eibishter. And therefore mitzvahs reach higher, they draw down from higher than ishtalshlos, higher than mitzias, like we learned also in the last Maamar. So that's one mila in mitzvahs, that it brings down a higher air. V'zeh, another mila in mitzvahs, shebekiyum ha-mitzvahs yeshna ha-mila de-ishapcha chasheichel l'nahira. There's a mila in transforming cheshech to air, transforming darkness to light. That there's a mile in that is like it says in the pasuk. Shleima Malach says, "V'ra'isi ani sheyesh yisrein lechachma min hasichlos, ki yisrein ha'er min hacheshach." That there's an advantage in changing sichlus to chachma, in transforming foolishness to chachma, similar to the mila of ha'er min hacheshach, of transforming darkness to light. So ishapcha chasheicha l'nehera is a mila. That's something that's an advantage. And that maila is there by mitzvahs more than by Torah. Ki birur haguf v'nefesh habahamis v'chelkei ba'ilam, the accomplishment of being mevarer, of refining the guf and nefesh habahamis and the world, who be'ikar al-yidei ma'isa mitzvahs. There's a certain aspect of birurim that happens through Torah also, and like we learned in the last Maamar, the mere fact that someone who's learning Torah is learning about physical things in the physical world has an effect on them. But nevertheless, mitzvahs, you're actually doing it with a davar gashmi. You're doing it with your kayach hamaisa. You're changing over the physical, the guf and nefesh habahamis more. And therefore, in mitzvahs, there's more the actual birur of gashmis, of the world around you. And therefore, you're dealing with cheshech. You're doing this hapcha chasheicha l'nahera. The transforming cheshech to air, darkness to light, is there by mitzvahs more than in Torah, and that's another advantage in mitzvahs. So now the Rebbe is going to say we see two different advantages in mitzvahs. There's a difference between them, and the difference between them is by which era, which mitzvahs contains this maila more. The difference is that we say that mitzvahs have a mile over Torah, they reach a higher air. They're mamshach, they draw down, they bring down a higher level of elokos, a higher air eliki. That's true more about the mitzvahs that were done in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Hi bizman habayis yeser mi bizman hagolos. This is true. This advantage, this kayach of mitzvahs to reach higher is more so during the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Why is that? Because this advantage in mitzvahs to reach higher is because of the bittul that's there in the doing a mitzvah. And the bittul is present more there during the time of the Beis Hamikdash.
They saw then what, if you see something.
Oh, so he's going to say, what causes mitzvahs to be mamshach higher air? What brings about is mainly because the mitzvahs have the mile of bittul. The bittul allows this hamshach, allows this reaching higher. V'chivan she'inyan habittul, who be'ikr bizman habayis, das ist the Mesiras Nefesh for Chassidus. Chivan she'inyan habittul hu be'ikr bizman habayis, since bittul was more complete, was more real during the time of the Beis Hamikdash, therefore the mitzvahs, the power of mitzvahs to be mamshach ha'hayir was much more by the time of the Beis Hamikdash. And in the brackets, the Rabbi is going to explain what do we mean when we say that there was more of a bittul during the time of the Beis Hamikdash. In bittul, there's two levels. There's bittul chitzeni, a superficial bittul. A superficial bittul is when I really feel that I'm an existence, that I have my own advantage, my own milas, but I force myself to be subservient to something or someone higher than me. A bittul pnimi, a inner bittul, is when I actually don't feel my existence. Someone who recognizes the greatness of the one he's standing in front of loses his own self-worth, self-value. These two types of bittul, a superficial bittul and an inner bittul, are represented by Kriya and Ishtachavoy. We say, V'anachnu Keirim u'mishtachavim. Keirim means kneeling down. Someone who kneels down, his head is still higher than the rest of his body. He still has his own self, but his self is a little bit lowered, a little bit showing hachna, showing a superficial bittul. Hishtachava, which al pi Torah, true bowing down, is pishit yadayim v'raglayim, is being completely flat. There's no separation at all between the head and the feet and any parts of the body. Hishtachava shows on bittul pnimi, on an inner bittul. Inner bittul is that the person is truly bittul. He doesn't feel himself. He's not going through the motions of subjugating himself to someone else. He says both of these bittles come from two different causes. Kriya bittul chitzayni comes from hasaga, from understanding. Someone understands the greatness of the Eibishter, that will motivate him to go through the motions of bittul. I still feel myself, but I'm going to act with Kabbalah Seil. I'm going to act in a way of subserviating myself to the Eibishter. Re'iyan alikus, when I actually feel, experience, sense the Eibishter, when I sense alikus, that brings out in me a bittul pnimi, then I don't feel myself. Then it's an inner bittul, then I'm truly bittul. So these are two levels, two types of bittul that come from two different causes. Both of them, he's going to say, are there much more bisman habayis than bisman hagolus. He says, D'nei saf lazeh, besides the fact שבזמן הגולוס אי אפשר ליש הביטל דשתחווה ביטל פנימי. So regarding the inner bittul, the bittul pnimi, the bittul of ishtachava, it doesn't exist b'zman hagolus. It comes from re'i and alikus. B'zman hagolus we see Helen v'Hester, we see Cheshach. That's impossible. No one is truly inherently bittul b'zman hagolus. That bittul pnimi comes Chabad dafka mitzad re'iyah be'alikus. That comes only from re'iyah. In Golus, by definition, is a cheshach, is oiseiseinu le'ra'inu. We don't actually see and experience alikus. There's no possibility at all of the bittul pnimi. This is what we say in davening. Ve'ein anu yechelim lalois v'leirois u'lishtachveis lefanecha. We say in Musaf and Yantif that bizman hagolus mebnei chatainu golinu me'artzeinu v'nisrachakna me'alad maseinu ve'ein anu yechelim lalois v'leirois u'lishtachveis lefanecha. And Chassidus asks the question, fine, in Golus we can't lalois v'leirois, we can't go to the Beis HaMikdash and see Elikus because there's no Beis HaMikdash. L'shtachavois, why can't I stand wherever I am and bow down to the Eibishter? Why do we say Ein anu yechelim l'shtachavois lefanecha? And Chassidus explains because Ishtachava means this bittul pnimi. Ishtachava is the inner bittul. If there's no leirois, bizman hagolus, when there's no Beis HaMikdash, there's no ability of seeing godliness, then automatically there's no possibility of Ishtachava. No one can be inherently and innerly bittul, because one is dependent on the other. Ve'ein anu yechelim lalois v'leirois l'shtachveis lefanecha. Demikivan she'ein anu yechelim lalois v'leirois. Since bizman hagolus there's no Beis HaMikdash, we can't go see Elikus. There's no leirois. B'meila ein anu yechelim l'shtachavois. Automatically, there's no possibility of ishtachava liyes b'pchinas bittul pnimi, to have the true, inner, real, genuine bittul. So that's not there. That's non-existent in the time of Golus. That's by definition, it's not reachable.
Because of the Mashiach, time of Golus, that's when the Emes Bittul
Yeah.
expresses itself.
Yeah. What that says is that in certain senses, the Rebbe says the bittul chitzayni has a certain truth to it that's not there in the bittul pnimi, because the person is really the person is really breaking himself, but it's not a real bittul that the person doesn't feel himself. So in other places, discusses at length the mile of each one. But here we're talking about the bittul that the person is not a metzias. He's not an existence, and therefore he's able to reach the highest level of Elikos. Bizman hagolus, we're subjugating our metzias, but it's a metzias that's subjugating. The metzias is always there before, during, and after the bittul. So that advantage is not there. There's no real bittul today.
State of war, but we're not.
Exactly. We're fighting ourselves, but we're there. There's something to, we feel ourselves, even in the biggest level of Avodas Hashem, we're going through the motions, and that's what the Eibishter wants from us today. He wants us to act with bittul. Don't do what you want. Do what the Eibishter wants. Go through the motions of bittul. That's also precious.
It still says Kriya is better than Bisman Abayis.
Even the Kriya, he's going to say that now.
Which is
What?
what you're talking about is Kriya, no?
We're talking about the result of it. The mile of it, the Rebbe says in other places, there's a certain credit that you get for disregarding yourself. The Kriya Bisman Abayis is that just like the Shtachava, the person is batal completely. The Kriya, the Chitzenis, he is batal at least in a superficial way. Today we're not even really batal in a superficial way. We're just going through the motions, even, but we have the other advantage, so we don't even feel the superficial batal, and still we're breaking ourselves. In the advantage of breaking ourselves, we're really, really breaking ourselves in all the love. He says, so not only the hashtachava is not there at all, Bisman HaGolos, Hinegam habitul hachitzeni, even the superficial, the chitzeni is the bittul, which is bittul the kriya, which is represented by kriya, by kneeling, sheba mitzad hasagas alikos, that to have a bittul chitzeni, it's not necessary to have re'iyah alikos, that comes from understanding alikos. Sheyeshna b'chlolos gam bizman hagolos, that in general, even bizman hagolos, even though einon yichelum leirois, we can't see, actually experience halikos, but to understand halikos, that we can do even bizman hagolos. We could learn chassidus and understand about the greatness of the Eibishter. Nevertheless, eine kidiboy, even the kriya is not truly the way it's supposed to be bizman hagolos. Kivan shegama hasaga belikus shebizman hagolos, even the understanding, eina hasaga mitis, is not a real understanding. We're not even properly understanding the greatness of the Eibishter, so automatically the result of the understanding, the kriya, the superficial bittul, that how well we do it depends on the level of our understanding, is less than the way it is bizman habayis. Lachein, so because the bittul bizman hagalus is less than the bittul bizman habayis, ha'hamshacha shaydekiyam ha'mitzvahs bizman habayis haisa hamshacha nailus biyes. The hamshacha, the mile of mitzvah, that it's mitzvahs that they're mamshach, they draw down a higher air, is much more by the mitzvahs that are done bizman habayis. Not only that, he says, it'll be even greater when Mashiach comes. This mile of mitzvahs that they're mamshech, a higher air, will be even more so by the mitzvahs that we do when Mashiach comes, because then the mitzvahs themselves will be in the highest level. Ki az yakiyam ha-mitzvahs betachlis ha-shleimus ke-mitzvahs ritzenecha. We say, v'sham nasa lefanecha ke-mitzvahs ritzenecha. So what we saw till here is that there's one aspect in the mile of mitzvahs that's more true regarding mitzvahs that are when there's a Beis HaMikdash. So we already have a beginning of an understanding of why the Tzemach Tzedek, there's one explanation, which will be in the Maamar of the Tzemach Tzedek, will not say the word HaBaim, that HaBaim is giving the advantage, the kayach dafka to mitzvahs bizman hagalus. No, there's a way of looking at mitzvahs that it's not specifically to mitzvahs shebizman hagalus. On the contrary, it's mainly in the mitzvahs that are bizman beis hamikdash. So then, according to that, we can't use that explanation of HaBaim.